Iconic sneaker moments. We're going to talk about them this time on Fire Footwear. Welcome back to Fire Footwear, everybody. As always, I'm your host, Matt Frates, and today we are going to talk about iconic sneaker moments. Before we get into that, I want to welcome everybody. Thank you for tuning in. As I always say, if you're new or you're old, I appreciate so much that you are here because this journey has been wonderful. It really has been fulfilling for me, like I talked about last time. And speaking of last time, we talked about the prices that Nike was already hiking up on the sneakers that we love. The response has been really great to that episode, and I certainly hope that it provided a little bit of context as to what is going on right now in the economy, but also what has gone on with sneaker prices, because I do believe that it's important to understand that just because you see a higher number, there is more embedded in that. It doesn't tell the whole story, and so I thought it was important to put that episode together, and I'm very happy that a lot of people thought it was informative. But I want to move on to something a little bit more fun. Right now, as I'm recording this, the NBA Finals are taking place, and it is taking place against Indiana and Oklahoma City. And so far, through 4 games, it has been a back and forth ride. There have been a lot of moments to take away from it, and it got me to thinking about how that has translated to sneakers, because the NBA Finals has been a place where a lot of sneaker moments have taken place. The sneaker movement, sneaker culture, is very much defined by these moments. And they're not just defined by these moments in sports. They are defined by these moments now in sports and pop culture. Because music, acting, sports, celebrity, all of these elements have had an influence on the game. And there have been moments in time that have now been solidified as really seminal moments in the growth of this culture that we know. Some people have discovered sneakers through Michael Jordan. Some people have discovered them through movies, through television, or some people have discovered them through, let's say, hip hop, or celebrities wearing these shoes out, rappers, other artists wearing shoes that other people recognize during concerts, during live performances. There's a plethora of ways in which sneakers have had an influence, and so I went to ChatGPT, which I normally use as a research assistant, so to speak, and I got it to give me some of the most iconic moments that it could think of. Now, before I get into that, just mentioning ChatGPT, I need to give a big, beautiful shout out to listener Will, who is part of my sneaker conversation on Instagram, and if you want to be a part of that, @FireFootwearPod is the handle for that. But Will and I sort of go back and forth on ChatGPT in making fun of the things that it comes up with and sort of having a good time about the fact that this show could be AI. I could just be an AI-generated voice. And so, Will, if you're out there, first of all, thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. But thank you for having a good time with me when it comes to ChatGPT and just AI in general, because it is a valuable resource. But sometimes it does things that leave me scratching my head, and other times it blows me away. So I had ChatGPT come up with some sneaker moments, and one of the things that I do, just for a little bit of transparency, I don't give it free rein to dictate everything that I'm going to talk about, because I ask it to research certain things, and it has its strengths and its weaknesses. But also, I have to look at where it's pulling some of this information from. Just because ChatGPT was able to find an iconic moment doesn't mean that it's an iconic moment that I want to talk about. And so I went back and forth with it for a while because it tried to give me a lot of the same moments. And there are moments that we all just sort of know as part of the culture, that we just sort of know as defining for the culture. But I wanted to find a little bit more than that, and I wanted to be able to dive a little bit deeper. So what ChatGPT has done is it has segmented out by different categories what it considers iconic moments that would be defined by the title of these segments. And it has defined them as 3 different segments. It has the new era icons, the style shifters, and the game changers. And so I want to start with what is considered a new era icon. And we're going to start in Miami in 2010. If you remember, the decision was one of the biggest television moments ever in sports to that period of time because LeBron James, King James, who at this point now is nearing retirement, was making his first big free agency choice. And Cleveland obviously had been a great place for him, but he decided to take his talents to South Beach. And at the time, the LeBron sneaker line was still sort of fledgling, but we were getting the Nike LeBron 8, and we got the LeBron 8 South Beach. And it was his first game with the Miami Heat following the decision. It featured a teal upper, had those pink laces and the black accents. Honestly, it's an iconic shoe in general. Even if the silhouette hasn't aged as well as we hoped that it would, iconic. Inspired by Miami Vice, which anytime you see a South Beach sort of themed uniform or anything South Beach related, you get this kind of colorway. It became a grail, and it's still in a lot of ways a resale favorite for a lot of people. I think that depends on if you were in the culture at the time, how you feel about LeBron, things like that. But it helped usher in the colorway in a storytelling era, and it really set LeBron off in terms of his shoes in Miami, and that was probably the most iconic LeBron of all time. It could be argued that anyway. That was one of them. And now we go back to the year 2000, and the year 2000 makes me sad because I was a junior in high school at the time, but at the time, Vince Carter was a highlight reel. He essentially was making these massive dunks every single time that he was on the court, including that Olympic dunk, which this is not that. But if you go back to that year's dunk contest, and he was wearing the Nike Shox BB4, which the Nike Shox is one of those shoes that at the time was so revolutionary, but really hasn't aged well, which maybe this is a referendum on shoes that haven't aged well. But Vince Carter won with the legendary dunks that he had, his arm in the rim. Does everybody remember this? If you haven't, go look it up on YouTube. It's absolutely wonderful. The metallic silver upper, blue foam midsole, the red Shox columns. You remember those columns, and they almost look like shock absorbers on a car. Really cool design. Haven't seen anything like that since. And it was the first major showcase for this shoe. The Nike Shox technology was brand new at the time. It was innovative at the time. And this was its first showcase. And obviously, what better way to do that than put it on a guy who can literally jump over the basket? It was absolutely incredible. And it reinvigorated an interest in the dunk contest because of this shoe. And I think that this is an iconic moment because the dunk contest used to be awesome. It peaked around this time, and now it's really an afterthought. And it really is an afterthought because the players that are there don't hold the same star power. But at the time, Vince Carter definitely had that star power, and this shoe was a big part of it. But now we're going to come back to the future in what I consider one of the greatest athletes of all time. Not female athletes, just athletes. And Serena Williams, her US Open farewell was in the Nike Flare 2 PE. It was her final Grand Slam appearance, and she wore these custom black Flare 2s. They had crystal embellishments, gradient midsole. It was really an awesome shoe, and it was custom made for her. It celebrated her fashion and athletic legacy because she did wear a lot of all black outfits during her time as a major star, and obviously her play spoke for itself. I said she's one of the greatest athletes of all time, and I stand by that. Just an absolute monster out there on the court. And I think that this really served to show and empower the presence of women's signature sneakers, because I think that when you look at sneakers as a whole, it's very male dominated. And that's okay because there are a lot of male athletes that gather a lot of attention. But I think nowadays we're moving more towards a lot of female athletes having a say in their shoe design, having a say in the space. You look at the Sabrinas, that's been a great line. Caitlin Clark, no doubt, is going to get her own shoe. Other athletes are going to get their own shoe. And if you think about Serena Williams being a beacon for this new movement, this transition to more female forward shoe designs, I think that it's a great thing. And it mixed high performance with an elegant story. And that's really awesome. And honestly, it's really embodying of what Serena was, that there was an elegance to her game, even though she was so dominant and even though she crushed a lot of opponents, there was an elegance in watching her, and these shoes really captured that. Now, 2019, this moment is not one of the greatest moments in terms of good feelings. Up until now, these have been good feelings, but does everybody remember Zion Williamson's shoe blowout? He was in the Nike PG 2.5 PE. Keep in mind, this was not a signature shoe for him per se, but Duke University, having a relationship with Nike, was able to get a lot of these shoes, and that's what he wore. On the court, the PG 2.5 ripped apart about 30 seconds into a game between Duke and North Carolina. Now, keep in mind, Duke-UNC is still one of the best rivalries in college basketball, if not the greatest rivalry in college basketball. A lot of eyes on this moment, a lot of eyes in this product. This shoe was white and blue, obviously, because it was a Duke PE, had the midfoot strap and a mesh upper. Unfortunately, this incident made national headlines because it put Nike in a bad spot, because here is this athlete who's going to come out into the draft. He's going to be the number one pick. He's transcending the sport, and the equipment that they give him breaks on national television. Not a great look. It did raise some questions about the durability of those shoes and probably made Nike go back to the drawing board a little bit. And they fast-tracked stronger player-specific builds going forward. And I think that was solely because of this moment. And if you look at the average NBA player today, they are bigger, they are more athletic than they were back in the day. And so Nike needing to do this, maybe this was a blessing in disguise. But that was a moment that I very clearly remember as I was watching it. And that moment stuck out. And maybe it was a blessing for Nike, who knows? The last one in this category is one that I included here, but I can understand if people don't feel a way about this. And it was Travis Scott in 2018, the Jordan 4 Cactus Jack. The reason that this is on here is because I believe that this shoe is what really started Travis Scott down the line into where he is. Some would argue that it is the Mocha 1, but I believe it was this shoe because this shoe really captured everybody. He wore it a lot during his summer concerts and different rollout events, but you remember that powdered blue suede, black cages, red lining, speckled heel tab, the Cactus Jack branding on the heel. It was very unique, very eye-popping. Some people feel as if it hasn't aged very well, and that's fair. But it was one of the most hyped non-athlete collabs to date at that point. And that to me is defining because we are now moving into an era that we're currently in now where it's not just athletes who are influencing sneaker moments. It is rappers, it is performers, it is actors, actresses, you name it. And it helped define the era of what is called the artist-driven sneaker release. And I think you're seeing a lot more of those. I think you're going to see a lot more of them too. And maybe some people don't think that this is the reason why, but I think that this is really almost a seminal moment in getting Travis Scott to then be a part of the Mocha Jordan 1, which that blew away everything that he had done and is still the greatest Travis Scott of all time. But this Jordan 4 is the reason that we got there in the first place because of how people felt about it. Now, this next category is called the style shifters, and this is really a great transition from the Travis Scott because all of these moments are really not as much sports related as they are pop culture related. And we're going to start in 1986. This is going way back. I was 3 years old, but we're talking about Run DMC and their concert at MSG. And fans holding up the shoes during the performance of My Adidas, which is one of their songs. It led to $1 million endorsement deal with Adidas, and I believe this was the first hip-hop group to have a sneaker deal like this. White leather, black stripes, shell toe. A lot of people of a certain generation may think of Fred Durst, but this is where this moment actually started. They wore them laces, the fat tongue was exposed. A lot of people do that with Nike SB sometimes. And again, the first official link between hip-hop and sneakers, and that's a very, very important moment. And even moving 3 years later, Back to the Future. Back to the Future is my favorite movie of all time. And the reason being is because I have a nostalgic feeling toward it because of the time period it came out and how young I was. And it just was such a great movie. There were 3 movies in that series. Back to the Future 2 is the one that came out with the Nike mag. Now, it debuted the Nike mag in the movie, but it wasn't an actual shoe until a lot later. But the Nike Air Mag actually started this revolution of sort of futuristic looking shoes. And it was a futuristic design because Marty had gone forward in time and these self-lacing shoes. They created a real-life version of these for charity. I believe it was in 2011. Think about that gray high top, LED lights, ankle strap. It was very, very unique. And it actually was a direct correlation to the Nike Adapt technology, which came out a little bit later. Unfortunately, that Adapt technology didn't stick around, I think, as much as Nike wanted it to. I think it's a step in the right direction. This shoe is a pop culture icon, and it's one of the most collectible sneakers of all time. I'm not sure how much you can wear it, but when you see it, you know what it is. And to me, that is huge because, again, there is still this influence that it has for self-lacing technology. And I think that Nike is the company that could get us there, and this is the reason why. Going back in time even further, 1968, the Puma Suede. And everybody knows what this shoe is. It's not a shoe that we see hyped very often, but everybody knows what this is. It's in that standard category of just classic shoes of all time. Tommy Smith and John Carlos had an Olympic protest in 1968 in the Olympics, and there was a silent protest on the Olympic podium for human rights. Smith wore his black Pumas during the medal ceremony. This shoe is a classic black suede, gold form strap, white sole. and the shoe became a symbol of activism and pride. It elevated Puma's social and cultural presence, and that's what this group is all about. This was about silent protest. This was about showing the world that they were passionate about something. And these shoes became part of that demonstration. And now, even today, we think about that moment because there's so much turmoil in the world. And these moments that sneakers were a part of, while maybe the shoe wasn't the focal point of the moment, it was a part of it. And so you can't go through a list like this without mentioning one of these times. And I think about, let's say, Jesse Owens in the Olympics. That wasn't necessarily a protest, but it certainly put Adidas on the map, and it certainly showed Adolf Hitler at the time that Black Americans could do a lot of things. And so it was a powerful moment, and this equally so. Coming forward in time to 2016. Now, Pharrell is, I think, a beacon of positivity. I see Pharrell as one of those people, and maybe this is his public persona, but I see him as positive. And in 2016, the Human Race NMD debuted. Now, the Adidas NMD had a really, really high ceiling. And then all of a sudden that flame petered out very, very quickly, and you almost never see NMDs anymore. I'm not even sure you see NMDs made anymore. But the Human Race Yellow, that colorway, it fused what I consider Pharrell's patented positivity and put it into this design. The color yellow, it gives you good vibes, sunshine vibes. It was a yellow prime knit with black plugs and the Human Race embroidery on it. And to me, that was actually really, really neat. And it kind of symbolizes, again, the human race and how we should have more empathy. It had massive resale at the time, and it was hyped so globally. And I think Pharrell's connection to it was a huge part of that. It blended fashion, music, and sneakers, of course. Pharrell, a musician in his own right, a producer. A lot of his personality was put into this shoe, and it pushed the NMD at the time into the spotlight. It didn't stay there, but the Human Race stuff that has now turned into, I believe, another company, I think it's actually really, really neat. And I think that this shoe did have an impact because I think it impacted other people and impacted future collaborations that Pharrell was a part of. And this was kind of the start of that, very similar to what Travis Scott did with the Jordan 4. And last in this category, in 2015, around the same time. If you remember, Kanye West was a part of Nike. And the Air Yeezy and the Air Yeezy 2 silhouettes broke the internet, essentially. Kanye decided to leave, and he went to Adidas, and nobody knew what was going to happen. And what ended up happening was the Adidas Yeezy 750. And this shoe was the first Adidas Yeezy model. It looked very similar to me, like the Air Yeezy 2, but it got him started down the train. He wore it during a Grammy performance on All-Star Weekend for the NBA. It had gray suede top with a Velcro strap, a zipper entry, and had that gum boost sole. And that's the thing, Adidas Boost. And that's something that has not gone away. It kind of looked luxury, and it looked as if they were trying to get a luxury focused design and shift that into sneaker fashion, because up until now, you're looking at a lot of athletic wear. And instead, Kanye was trying to go for a more high fashion look, but sort of at the same level as other sneakers. Now, Yeezys, the prices were always higher, but you always, for the most part, got the quality to go with it. And I think that this is really where Kanye took off. A lot of people say it may be with the Air Yeezy 2, but I don't think so. I believe that this had a lot to do with Kanye's ascension into sneakers, and he did a lot of great work between 2015 and let's say 2019 with the Yeezy line, because my goodness, there were so many fire colorways, so many fire silhouettes, the Yeezy 350, the Yeezy 700, so many. Even the Yeezy 500 for a lot of people. And I think that this shoe right here was the reason for that. And now we're going to get into the last category, which is what is called the game changers. Now, these are sports related, and rightfully so. And we're going to start in 2013. Now, this is the NBA Finals in 2013, and this is Ray Allen. Ray Allen, to me, is the greatest shooter of all time up until Steph Curry came along. Ray Allen was amazing. Ray Allen, Reggie Miller, Steph Curry, all in that same boat. Ray Allen was at the tail end of his career. He had gone on to play with the Boston Celtics, win an NBA title, and now he's sitting here in Game 6. He shoots that amazing three-pointer, that lucky-ass three-pointer, really, and he's wearing his Air Jordan 28 Finals PE. He had the game-tying shot in Game 6 of the NBA Finals against the Spurs. It forced overtime. They ended up winning the championship off of that. The shoe had a white zip-up shroud, that carbon plate had gold details, the zoom pods on it. It was a very unique-looking shoe, and he had it on during this moment. It was unconventional, but so was Ray Allen in a way. And I think that that is actually a great impact that this shoe had. It was a lasting impression of this moment, because if you go back to the NBA Finals history and you play top 10 moments, that shot is probably going to be on there. And this moment revived interest in performance first Jordans, because the Jordan 28, I believe, was the most expensive retail Jordan, at least when it debuted. And Ray Allen wearing this late in his career, actually pretty cool. So I like that moment a lot. Moving on to 1997. Now this is in the Michael Jordan era, at the very end of the Michael Jordan era. And this you could consider one of the best moments of all time, the flu game. The Air Jordan 12 flu games, which I believe re-released this year at some point. Michael plays through illness, the flu. He scores 38 points in Game 5 of the finals, an iconic performance, supposedly having the flu, feeling like shit. Think about you having the flu and then going out and just dropping 40 on the Utah Jazz. And this shoe is forever tied to one of the greatest and gutsiest performances in sports, no doubt. The flu games are widely sought after because of this connection, and even the shoes that he wore in that game are still being sold at auction today. It featured the black leather upper, the red mudguard, the gold accents, the rising stitch lines. It was durable, it was sleek, it was inspired by a Japanese flag design, which obviously was pretty neat. And it gained cult status because of the fact that it was tied to this moment. The Flu Game 12s, they are a cult status, and they are one of the most hyped shoes of all time, one of the most sought after Jordans of all time, and it was because of this moment. And then you go to 2006 and Kobe Bryant, who a lot of people saw as possibly the direct descendant of Michael Jordan, the next Michael Jordan. We've always been searching for that personality, and Kobe kind of got that label first. His 81-point game in the Nike Zoom Kobe 1, it was the second highest scoring game in NBA history, obviously to Wilt Chamberlain. It really cemented his legacy and his scoring dominance. And I think at the time, even though he had been a multi-time champion, that Mamba mentality got tied to this game. The shoe featured a black and purple leather upper, the carbon fiber midfoot, and of course the Zoom Air technology, which they still use today. It was designed obviously for performance and stability because he's an NBA player, a shooter. You need that stability around the ankles. And I think that this was really the start of Kobe's elite Nike signature run, because all of the best Kobes came out after this moment. And if they're tied to a moment like this where you see his greatness on the court, that's going to correlate to high shoe sales. That's going to correlate to some great designs, the same way it happened for Michael Jordan. And we're going to get to that a little bit later. Second to last, 1997. A young Allen Iverson comes up on Michael Jordan. Now, this is again considered a passing of the torch moment, but Allen Iverson crosses over Michael Jordan in the Reebok Question Mid, the red toe. This is a rookie Allen Iverson. He was small, but he was very fearless, and crossing over what a lot of people felt was the best player in NBA history on national television. My goodness, what a moment. Again, it could be considered a changing of the guard, but to me, they were completely different players, and I think that this moment highlighted the fact that Allen Iverson was a force to be reckoned with. The shoe had the white leather upper, the red suede toe, the icy sole, the hexalite cushioning. I remember all of that. The 3 on the heel honoring Allen Iverson's number, of course, and to be a rookie, to get that shoe, to get your own signature shoe, how cool is that? Now, we haven't seen the same excitement over them in 2025, but that doesn't mean that this moment wasn't amazing, and Allen Iverson was there to stay and had a great career, Hall of Fame career. Now, the last moment that I'm going to mention is probably the moment, at least for me it is. Not only does it involve my favorite shoe, but it involves my favorite moment of Michael Jordan's career, and that is the shot, the Craig Elo shot. And he wore the Air Jordan 4 black cement. We all know it as Breads now, but it was the black cement colorway. And it was a buzzer beater that he hit over Craig Elo in the playoffs. And it was really the time when Michael Jordan started ascending in the NBA playoffs as a winner. Keep in mind that Michael Jordan was a rookie and did a lot of losing and ascending in the playoffs. He really had to pay his dues before he started being the clutch player that we know. And he did so in this moment. The shoe featured a black nubuck upper, the gray accents, the mesh panels, the red outsole. We all know this shoe. I own it in multiple fashions. It was the first Jordan that had visible air. It was the first Jordan that had those support wings on it, and I thought that that was pretty neat. And of course, this helped launch Tinker Hatfield. I mean, Tinker Hatfield had the Jordan 3, and now he had the Jordan 4, and for it to be a part of this particular moment, obviously the Jordan 3 had the free throw line, slam dunk contest, which you could put on this list as well. To me, I think the shot has a little bit more oomph because it was a big playoff win, a walk-off playoff win, and to me, that is a lot more important. Those are some of the iconic moments that I came up with while talking with ChatGPT. There are tons of them, folks. You could go through and find just about any sneaker moment, put it up there, and really talk about it. but I think these were a good set of 15 that I think helped to define some of the moments that got us to where we are. Because sneaker culture, as I said earlier, it is multifaceted. It's not just sports anymore. And these are some of the moments that I had. I would love to know some of your moments. Let me know. Get in touch with me. Instagram and TikTok at Fire Footwear Pod are the handles to do so. Fire Footwear Sneaker Talk on YouTube. Buried the lead a little bit, but we have changed the name slightly to this and the YouTube channel. Fire Footwear Sneaker Talk with Matt Frates is what you'd search. Obviously, if you go there, subscribe, like, leave a comment. I'd love to know. Watch some videos, share them. It means a lot. We are very close to reaching some of these goals. And for you listening right now, subscribe, rate, review, leave me a rating. I'd love to know. Even if it's 1 star, it's okay. You could hate the podcast and tell me I'm full of shit and tell me that I'm stupid. It's fine. At least I know where you stand. It just helps, and I love seeing the connection with people. I hope this finds everybody well, fam. I hope this finds everybody safe. I'll talk to you next time. This is Fire Footwear.